You once believed Ontario was a safe place to hold real estate? Sorry, not anymore. In 2025, 10 cities across the province are facing a quiet but devastating exodus. Homes that were once solid investments now sit empty for months, trapping owners in properties no one wants to buy. This isn't just a market correction, it's a silent collapse happening right under our noses. If you don't know which cities are becoming ghost towns, you could be next. Brampton, the bubble burst leader. When a city becomes the poster child for housing market collapse, you know something has gone terribly wrong. Brampton, once the golden escape route for Toronto buyers priced out of the big city, now leads Ontario's housing crash with devastating consequences that ripple through entire neighborhoods. The numbers tell a brutal story. Home prices in Brampton have plummeted over 17% since their 2022 peak, making it the worst performing major market in the province. But statistics only scratch the surface of what's really happening here. Entire subdivisions built between 2020 and 2022 have become stress tests for homeowners locked into fixed-rate mortgages ranging from 5.5 to 6.3%. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent thousands of families who thought they'd found their slice of the Canadian dream. The pain goes deeper than falling prices. Banks are now appraising homes at values significantly lower than purchase prices, causing deals to collapse at the last minute. One local real estate agent reported that nearly 40% of her recent transactions fell through due to financing issues, leaving both buyers and sellers stranded in an increasingly hostile market. Meanwhile, the cost of actually owning these depreciating assets keeps climbing. Property taxes have increased by an average of 4.8% this year, while home insurance premiums have jumped nearly 15%. For underwater homeowners already struggling with high mortgage payments, these additional costs feel like salt in an open wound. What makes Brampton's situation particularly dangerous is the false sense of security it once provided. But as we'll see, even cities with stronger industrial foundations aren't immune to this spreading crisis. Hamilton, the steel city's rust. Hamilton's steel industry may have weathered decades of economic storms, but the city's housing market is showing cracks that go far deeper than anyone expected. What was once hailed as the perfect alternative for Toronto buyers has become a cautionary tale of how quickly market confidence can evaporate. The average home price has dropped 4.8% over the past year to $777,800. That might sound like a modest correction, but it masks a much more troubling reality lurking beneath the surface. Thousands of homeowners who bought during the 2021 to 2022 frenzy are now trapped underwater, locked into mortgage rates exceeding 6.5% while watching their home values sink below their original loan balances. Housing inventory tells an even starker story. The city now has over 4 months of available supply, far exceeding the healthy threshold of 2 to 3 months that indicates a balanced market. In previously hot neighborhoods like Stony Creek and Binbrook, homes routinely sit on the market for 90 to 120 days without generating a single serious inquiry. The silence is deafening in areas that once buzzed with bidding wars and quick sales. Small investors who once saw Hamilton as their ticket to real estate wealth are now scrambling for the exits. Many are willing to accept significant losses just to escape before conditions worsen further. Local real estate professionals report that panic selling has become increasingly common, with some investors cutting prices by $30,000 or more just to move properties quickly. But Hamilton's industrial roots run deep, which makes the struggles in communities built purely on suburban expansion dreams even more telling. Oshawa, suburban dreams gone dark. The pandemic promised a suburban renaissance, and nowhere did that dream burn brighter than in Oshawa. Thousands of families fled Toronto's cramped condos for spacious homes and quiet streets, driving one of the most dramatic housing booms in Ontario's history. But dreams built on borrowed money and inflated expectations have a way of turning into nightmares. Oshawa's housing market experienced a meteoric 50% price surge in just 2 years, transforming this former automotive town into a supposed suburban paradise. Then reality hit hard. Home prices have since plummeted 8.7% as buyer purchasing power collapsed under the weight of rising interest rates and economic uncertainty. The current situation reveals just how fragile this suburban dream really was. Housing inventory has exploded by 35% in the first half of 2025 alone, with brand new developments sitting empty for hundreds of days without a single offer. The fundamental problem becomes clear when you look at local economics. Median household income remains stuck around $85,000 per year, while the true cost of home ownership continues climbing relentlessly. Drive through once promising neighborhoods like Winfield's Farm and North Glen today, and you'll see what locals have started calling zombie streets. These areas are technically populated, but feel eerily abandoned. No lights in windows, no cars in driveways, no signs of actual life. Many young buyers who bet everything on Oshawa's suburban promise now find themselves trapped, unable to sell, unable to rent out their properties, and increasingly unable to afford staying. The suburban flight that created these problems isn't unique to Oshawa, and other communities that rode the same wave are discovering similar harsh realities. Barrie, the paradox market. Sometimes the cruelest market conditions create the most baffling paradoxes. In Barrie, home prices have dropped a substantial 10.2% over the past 12 months, yet properties continue sitting unsold for entire seasons without attracting a single serious offer. When even significant price cuts can't move inventory, you know something fundamental has broken in the market's psychology. The numbers paint a picture of complete buyer withdrawal. Housing inventory has reached its highest level since 2018, while the absorption rate has crashed to under 30%. This means that 7 out of every 10 listings simply sit there, untouched and unwanted, no matter how aggressively sellers slash their asking prices. But here's what makes Barrie's situation particularly brutal. The cost of ownership hasn't decreased along with home values. Property taxes climbed 5.2% in 2025, while home insurance premiums now run 12% above the provincial average. For homeowners already underwater on their mortgages, these rising carrying costs feel like being slowly squeezed in a financial vice. The visual evidence of this market collapse is impossible to ignore. Once desirable neighborhoods like Inistaville and Allendale are now dotted with overgrown lawns, peeling paint, and dark windows that haven't seen light in months. For sale signs have become permanent fixtures, faded reminders of a market that simply stopped functioning. What's happening in Barrie reflects a broader crisis of confidence that's spreading beyond traditional suburban markets. Even cities that built their identities around specific economic advantages are discovering that past success offers no protection from current realities. London, the remote work mirage. London once seemed like the perfect beneficiary of the remote work revolution. When thousands of professionals fled Toronto seeking more space and lower costs, this southwestern Ontario city appeared to offer the ideal combination of urban amenities and affordable living. But that remote work paradise has turned into a costly mirage that's leaving residents financially stranded. Home prices have fallen 13% from their 2022 peak, wiping out years of gains and trapping many buyers who thought they'd timed the market perfectly. The momentum has completely shifted, with listings surging 42% year over year, while average days on market has doubled to between 48 and 53 days. What was once a seller's dream has become a waiting game that few are winning. The promise of lower living costs has also evaporated. Electricity bills have surged 11% over the past year, while water and garbage fees have climbed 9%. These aren't small adjustments. They represent hundreds of dollars in additional monthly expenses for homeowners already struggling with elevated mortgage payments and declining property values. Perhaps most telling is the rental market collapse. Vacancy rates have climbed to 3.4%, the highest level since 2017, as demand from both renters and buyers continues to weaken. Young professionals who initially moved to London for its affordability are now leaving for cities like Kitchener and Waterloo, where job prospects appear more promising and economic fundamentals seem stronger. London's struggles highlight how even cities with apparent competitive advantages can fall victim to broader market forces, but at least London has a diversified economy, unlike communities that bet everything on a single industry. Niagara Falls, tourism can't save housing. You might think a world-famous tourist destination would be immune to housing market collapse, but Niagara Falls proves that even iconic attractions can't save a fundamentally broken real estate ecosystem. The city that attracts millions of visitors annually has become a cautionary tale about the dangers of betting everything on short-term rental income and tourism dollars. The collapse started with a tourism downturn that caught everyone off guard. Short-term booking rates have plummeted 30% year over year, while U.S. visitor numbers have dropped sharply due to rising travel costs and currency fluctuations. Properties that once generated thousands in monthly Airbnb revenue now sit empty for weeks at a time, bleeding cash while owners struggle to cover mortgage payments and maintenance costs. Home prices have fallen 11% in just 12 months, while vacancy rates have climbed above 4.5%. Alarming numbers for a city of this size and tourist draw. But the real killer has been the explosion in ownership costs. Home insurance rates have spiked 19% as insurers reassess flood risks and property damage potential, while new municipal regulations are tightening controls on short-term rentals, further limiting income potential. U.S. investors who once saw Niagara Falls as their golden ticket to Canadian real estate profits are now scrambling for the exits. Many purchased multiple properties during the low-interest boom, expecting tourism and rental income to cover their costs indefinitely. Instead, they're discovering that Airbnb dreams can quickly become financial nightmares when market conditions shift. The harsh reality is that tourism-dependent economies create inherently unstable housing markets. But communities facing demographic decline face even deeper structural challenges that go far beyond visitor numbers. Sudbury, cheap but worthless. When a community starts losing its people, cheap housing prices become meaningless because no one wants to live there anymore. Sudbury perfectly illustrates this devastating principle. Home prices have dropped 12% over the past year, yet inventory has surged 35% as properties sit on the market for 6 months or longer without generating a single serious offer. The fundamental problem isn't pricing, it's that Sudbury is experiencing a demographic collapse that makes real estate investment increasingly risky. Record numbers of young residents are leaving for opportunities in bigger cities, while the aging population grows steadily larger. This creates a dangerous cycle where fewer working-age people remain to support local businesses, maintain the tax base, and create demand for housing. Public infrastructure is crumbling under the strain of this demographic shift. A recent municipal survey revealed that 40% of residents rate local healthcare services as poor or very poor, reflecting the broader challenges facing a community that's struggling to maintain basic services with a shrinking population and limited resources. Even when you can buy cheaply in Sudbury, the true cost of ownership is climbing rapidly. The city now has the highest home maintenance cost increase in Northern Ontario at 17% year over year, as aging housing stock requires more repairs, while qualified contractors become increasingly scarce. What makes Sudbury's situation particularly troubling is that these demographic trends are accelerating rather than stabilizing. Young families see limited job opportunities and declining quality of life, creating a brain drain that weakens the community's long-term viability. But demographic challenges pale in comparison to cities facing fundamental economic disruption, where entire industries that once supported local housing markets are now under threat. Windsor, the affordable trap. Windsor's proximity to Detroit once made it an attractive industrial hub, but economic disruption has transformed this border city into a perfect example of how affordable housing can become an expensive trap. What appeared to be a bargain destination for buyers fleeing Toronto's high prices has revealed itself as a market where low purchase prices hide devastating long-term costs. Home prices have dropped 14% overall, but in investor-heavy neighborhoods, the decline reaches 18 to 20%. These aren't gentle corrections. They represent substantial wealth destruction for anyone who bought during the previous boom years. Deal cancellations and back-on-market listings have reached their highest levels in all of southwestern Ontario as buyers discover hidden costs that make Windsor far less affordable than advertised. The biggest shock comes from insurance premiums, which have jumped 22% in a single year due to increased flood risks in low-lying areas near the Detroit River. Property taxes are now 15% above the provincial average, making the total cost of home ownership significantly higher than many buyers anticipated when they were attracted by seemingly low purchase prices. Windsor's economic foundation is also cracking under pressure from automation and industry changes. The local auto manufacturing sector faces ongoing layoffs and plant closures as companies restructure their operations, leaving many residents without stable employment prospects. This economic uncertainty has caused rental vacancy rates to soar to 6.8%, nearly double last year's levels, as both renters and buyers lose confidence in the area's long-term viability. The combination of industrial decline and rising costs has created a dangerous feedback loop that's affecting other cities that once seemed immune to such dramatic market shifts. St. Catharines, the reverse domino effect. St. Catharines experienced one of Ontario's most dramatic pandemic-era transformations, but what goes up fast often comes down even faster. Between 2020 and 2022, home prices skyrocketed 40% as thousands of families fled the GTA for what seemed like affordable wine country living. Now that meteoric rise is reversing with devastating consequences for anyone who bought near the peak. Home prices have plummeted 13% in just the past 12 months, but the real damage shows up in market psychology. Deal cancellations have doubled compared to early 2024, while the average time to sell a home has ballooned past 42 days, over 60% longer than pre-crash norms. Buyers who once competed fiercely for properties are now walking away from deals or simply avoiding the market altogether. The city's infrastructure tells a story of growth that happened too fast without proper planning. Healthcare facilities, public transit, and road networks failed to keep pace with the explosive population increase, creating a noticeable decline in quality of life that's driving the reverse migration many residents are now experiencing. Perhaps most damaging is the Airbnb oversupply crisis. Short-term rental investors who rushed in during the pandemic to capitalize on wine tourism are now dumping properties onto the market as booking rates decline and profitability disappears. Entire neighborhoods that were converted to vacation rentals are being flooded with for sale signs, creating a serious oversupply problem that's accelerating the price decline. St. Catharines demonstrates how quickly a hot market can turn cold, but there are places where the fundamental economics are so broken that even ultra-low prices can't attract buyers. Sault Ste. Marie, the ultimate value trap. In Sault Ste. Marie, you can still buy a house for under $300,000. Sounds like the deal of a lifetime, right? But here's the harsh truth about rock-bottom prices. They mean absolutely nothing when no one wants to live in your city. This Northern Ontario community has become the ultimate cautionary tale about mistaking cheap for valuable. Properties routinely sit on the market for 90 days or longer without generating a single phone call from potential buyers. Real estate agents report weeks passing without any inquiries on listings, even those priced well below market averages. The silence isn't temporary. It's become the new normal in a city that's quietly emptying out. The demographic collapse tells the real story. 17% of college graduates leave Sault Ste. Marie within just 2 years of starting their careers, creating a brain drain that weakens the entire community. The population is steadily shrinking while rapidly aging, leaving behind fewer working people to support local businesses and maintain the tax base needed for basic services. Public services are pulling back as the city struggles with budget constraints. Hospitals operate with chronic understaffing, bus routes have been cut, and emergency response times continue to slow. These aren't temporary setbacks. They're symptoms of a community in managed decline. In some neighborhoods, vacancy rates have reached 12 to 15%. Entire streets have become rows of empty homes with overgrown yards and broken windows. This isn't just a housing market correction. It's urban decay happening in real time. Sault Ste. Marie proves that when a city loses its reason for existing, your property becomes a liability that no amount of price cutting can fix.